forget, you can hear the full-length, longer version wherever you get your podcasts. My guest today, I've wanted to talk to I've talked to him privately, but I've wanted to talk to him on here for a long time. It's the one, it's the only Larry Lamb.
There you go. You should have asked.
Just enjoy him. People watching this on YouTube, just look at him for a bit. Just look at him. Look at him. Just that roguish glint.
Not anymore. Fire's gone out.
I don't think it has, Larry.
It's still glimmering a bit now and again.
It's not the furnace it once was.
No, it's not the furnace. That's the absolute truth. It's not the furnace. It's more of a sort of a wet match that will still light up if you give it a good scrape on the box.
You're going to say scrape on the bottom.
Not on the bottom, dear. Thank you very
lovely
much.
to see you.
Lovely to see you, man.
Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're both waiting to see the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special.
Yeah.
How much fun was it filming it?
Yeah, it was such a real, I hate the term like a roller coaster, but an emotional roller coaster, seeing everybody again, working together again, being down there again, being in Wales again, all of it, all sort of coming. And then that sense of, this is the finale, and there's always a funny old thing with the finale of anything, as we all know. We've done them so many, or sometimes we don't know it's the finale.
Usually
right?
You don't know, do you?
You don't know. That's it. You just find out later on, by the way, that was the last show. But no, it was, I really loved it. I love being down there, and I made some more friends down in that part of the world, and I'm going down there again in a week or so's time. Just go down and see some friends. I've got a little job in Cardiff, and so I'm going to make a trip out of it. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. And the real thing I'm looking forward to is sitting with my family and watching them watch it, having kept it an absolute closed secret from them for the best part of a year now. That's it. That'll be the payoff.
There are some surprises, aren't there?
I can't wait. Let's see the audience literally flipped right out their seats, right? No. And then flipped again.
I know. So we were living down in Wales for about 5 or 6 weeks, I think. And you weren't living off the earth, but there was something very elemental about you. Because what were you managing to do almost every day?
Me? Oh, I see what you mean. Well, I've become sort of addicted to swimming all year round, so I swim right through the winter. And I was staying in a little flat down in Sully, a little village along from Barry, and my friends there who fixed it up for me, they're swimmers as well. And so every morning that I could, I'd go down there, 6:30, and swim in the sea and go and have a bacon sandwich in Marco's and chat with the locals around there. So I just had the best time, the best.
And you were the only one doing that. Well, Melanie, Gwen, she likes
she loves to swim, but she's well more of a pool swimmer, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, and also when she gets out of the sea, she doesn't, as you do, look like a slightly more mature Daniel Craig.
Slightly more. You should discuss that with him. A slightly more mature Daniel Craig.
It was emotional, wasn't it? You remember those scenes? I mean, I won't be giving anything away if I say that some scenes were in Pam and Mick's house.
Yeah.
And there were several of us together.
Yeah.
That's when I felt emotional.
Yeah. I know.
And being amongst all those people who we've known.
Yeah.
For 20
years
now.
Yeah. It was really something. And I kept thinking all these people who started off in their 20s and now they're well on their way to 50, and kids that weren't yet born.
Joe Page didn't have any children then.
No.
And the thing that I observed was that I am now the age that you were when we started.
Yeah, you are pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close, you are.
You were what? You were 104 when you
104
began.
when
and I'm
started.
103 now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's how it began.
I turned 60. I turned 60 as it was going out. I
Right.
wasn't yet 60
okay.
when we did it. I
Well,
was,
that's the same then, because
yeah,
I'm
exactly,
59.
59.
So yeah,
There you go, boy.
Your story is so interesting because you worked. I want to say a paper mill. I know you worked in oil, in the oil
I
industry.
started off in the waste paper business. You know, that
Right.
was the first job.
But where did you grow up?
I grew up north of London. Well, I grew up in North London, Edmonton, Harlow, Cheshunt, Waltham Abbey, Waltham Cross, Harlow again, but out on the edges to the north side of London. That's where I grew up. I went to a grammar school, but things at home were really bad. It was a huge emotional turmoil, and you know, whilst I was obviously I got a scholarship to the grammar school and was clearly bright enough to do that, but it all went by the wayside. The academics went by the wayside. And the only thing came out of it was the ability to speak a bit of French. It was the only thing I could do, and so what I wanted to do, I wanted to escape. I wanted to go somewhere and get a job overseas, but of course I didn't have any qualifications.
Well, that was just to escape from
I
this
just wanted to get out of
turbulent family.
Yeah, I wanted to make a life of my own. I did not want to sit around suffering with what was going on. And I started to look for jobs, and I found on Thursdays, the Daily Telegraph always used to have what they call them, those columns, the personal columns, where all funny little jobs were, and there was a job saying, young men looked for to be commissioned salesmen in Germany. And I thought, bang, that's it. And I went and did an interview with these people, and they gave me a job. They said, right, you can
selling what?
Selling encyclopedias. Basically, they were selling encyclopedias to the American military men and women that were stationed in Germany as part of the occupying forces.
Yes.
And there were about 1 million of them there.
Right.
And so it was a big business there.
So they train you?
They trained you a bit. They told you, they basically showed you what you were supposed to do and the way you're supposed to do it. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it?
No, I couldn't do it. I could chat the people up and learned how to do all sorts of American accents and had a lovely time, but I couldn't close a deal.
Close the deal.
I couldn't do it. This was where my career as an actor all started, in Germany. I went to a party that I and my mate hadn't been invited to, and it was in a castle along, I think, on up way up above the River Rhine, and the party was hosted by somebody whose family had owned this castle in centuries gone by, and they'd invited hundreds of people to this do. It was amazing, and I finished up on top of a tower. Couple of 100 feet high, this thing, a whole crumbly old tower, looking way over the valley, and then gradually overnight, as the sun was coming up, I'd spent the entire night trying to have my evil way with this woman, and she was having none of it. And in the end, she said to me, Larry, you should be an actor, and that was the beginning of it, literally. And she, true to her word, because it turned out, then I found out the truth. So the reason she was having none of it, she was madly in love with a German pilot who was training with the American Air Force. There was not interested in anybody. That's it. Yeah. But she took me along to the drama group on the big air base where she worked in Wiesbaden. And of course, everywhere they had a big base, there was a drama group. And introduced me to the whole concept of amateur theatre, which I knew nothing about.
Had you had any thoughts of being an actor before this?
Are you kidding? Oh, no. That's why when she said you should be an actor, it was like, oh, all right. Yeah, none whatsoever. But I was moved up to the north of Germany to a big establishment up there where they imported all the goods for the American military from, by sea in Bremerhaven. And there was a theatre group there, and I went along and introduced myself and said I'd like to get involved. And he said, right, well, we need somebody to do the sound on our play that we're just getting on. So would you be interested? I said, I'll do anything. So they put me in a little booth with a record player with an arm and a red light and a green light. And when the green light went, I had to drop the arm down onto the record player. And when the red light went, I had to lift it up. I did that, and that was it. I was in show business, and I was a huge hit. That was it. And there were loads of women there. So I did that, and then I did what, I did what, 1, 2, 3. I did three or four plays there, and then I was going to America to get married to the woman a nurse, American nurse.
Sorry, hang on a minute. Now you're getting married? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
How are you earning your money at this time? What are you doing? Are you still with the encyclopedias?
No, I work. No, what happened? Okay, I came back to England.
Yeah.
From Germany.
Yeah.
And I was madly in love with Jackie, this American nurse.
Yeah.
And I came back and I did not know what to do. And my brother and I got invited to a party, but it was fancy dress party, and it was a friend of his. He invited us to come to this party. So it was like, well, what are we going to do with fancy dress? So he was living in an old caravan, my brother, and somehow or other, we got hold of some old curtains, and we draped the curtains all over us, got a bit of holly off the wall or something, made laurel wreaths around her head, and we went off as a couple of Romans to this thing. And I got chatting to a bloke who had actually, been and hired a whole Roman outfit. He looked magnificent. And Graham Polton, he was an old school friend of my brother, and we were chatting. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm just back from Libya. What are you doing now?" I work in the oil business in corrosion control, cathodic protection, as it's called. I said, "So what's that, like anodes and cathodes?" And that's, "Oh yeah." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, I did physics and chemistry at school. Never passed any exams at all, but I know about that." And he said, "Well, you said you're looking for a job." And I said, "Look, I've got to do something." He said, "Okay." He said, "I think I might be able to get you in to talk to my bosses and, do an interview. They're looking to hire technicians." Anyway, finally, we got married, and it was, absolutely lovely, lovely lady. And we got married in she was from West Virginia. She was a girl from the Appalachians, but she was very bright. And, she was from a country family, but her parents were teachers. And so we got married. We got married in the Baptist church in her little town of Clendenin, West Virginia. She took me around to meet, and we met this cousin. And he said, what are you doing? I told him, he said, "You know what? My brother lives up in Philadelphia, and that's exactly what he does. He works in corrosion control in the oil business." And so we finished up. We went to Philadelphia, and we met this guy sitting in his kitchen. He said, "My brother tells me you work in corrosion control." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You looking for a job?" And so he leaned across, pulled one of those old phones off the wall, with the great long, and then ding, 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 put the number in. And then started talking to this man called Regis, and Regis Cubitt was his boss. And the next morning, I was sitting across the desk from Regis Cubitt, who was the head of the engineering head in the engineering division of Henkels and McCoy, who were a national company that did all sorts of pipeline work, telegraph work, telephone work, anything, utilities contractors. And so he said, "Right, tell me what you're doing." And I said, "Well, look, the first thing is I don't have any qualifications. I'm not interested in qualifications," right? He said, "Like, if I want people with qualifications, I'll put an ad in the paper, right? And tomorrow morning, I'll have a line of them sitting outside my office, all clutching their certificates, and they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground." So that was that. So I sat and talked to him for an hour or more probably. And then he said, "When do you want to start?" And that was it. Went back to England, got that sorted out. But anyway, then we went off to have our honeymoon. And on the way, we were driving through West Virginia, and she said, "Let's go up they call them cricks and hollers. There's a crick, is a little stream, and it runs through a holler, which is like a ravine, and the water comes all the way down to the valleys and into the big rivers. So we drive up and up and up and up and up this holler, and then just in the distance, as we're coming up to a level bit, we can see this great big mobile home there. And there were all kinds of kids all climbing over it, running around out there, all a bit feral, look wild. And she kind of looked at me and said, come on. So we stopped and got out, and down towards us comes this big burly guy with the dungarees on and the big caterpillar cat baseball cap on there, and he's got this little woman by his side. He puts his hand out. I said, hey, how you doing there, boy? My name's John. This here's Judy. Y'all can call her Heifer.
Can call her Heifer?
Heifer. So little Heifer's there. And Jackie, the new wife, looks at me and said, you wanted to meet the family, right? Here you are.
That was her family?
That was her family. This was another cousin. They had cousins everywhere. Yeah. Y'all can call her Heifer. So anyway, I'm then working for this company, doing surveys in different parts of America, all the way from New England, down through New York, right down into Washington, right down into Maryland, down into North Carolina, down into South Carolina, doing surveys and all the big pipelines that feed up from Texas that come through to feed the big metropolitan area, right? And then I got promoted and sent up to Canada, to Nova Scotia, to run a different division of the country up there. And of course, that meant I was in the same place all the time. Yeah. And one night I pulled off, it was deep in the winter, there was a big blizzard blowing up. And I pulled off the road because you couldn't see anything, and sat there listening to the radio. And on the local radio, there was somebody was speaking on behalf of the little university that was in the area I was. It's a little old Catholic university, St. Francis Xavier, in this town of Antigonish. And they said, we are looking to find members of the community who would be interested in playing parts in our plays, so we can boost up the numbers and the level of age in terms of it, just in terms of the plays we want to do, because at the moment it's members of the teaching staff and it's students. There's a big gap between them, So anyway, I went along, and they just took me on straight away. So I did the first play I did with them was what was it? The Lion in Winter. Yeah. And I played Richard the Lionheart. The Lion in Winter.
And what are you getting out? Tell me what you are getting out of starting to do these performances. What is that giving you?
Something that I could do that I wasn't kidding that I could do. I was kidding what I was doing. I blagged my way into this,
kidding
right?
Pretty well.
I'm running an overhead power line construction company, and I couldn't then, and I could now barely change a plug.
Yeah, but you clearly had what it took.
Yeah, well, you just, you just had to sort of make people believe you had what it took. But then, you see, when you start doing the theatre, and, you might like being out there dressed in all that fancy-dancy stuff, but, the very first night in front of an audience in the very first play I did in Germany, which was A Man for All Seasons, and I was playing Henry VIII, and my really beautifully stockinged knees were literally knocking. I mean, I couldn't control my knees. I was so nervous. I'd been great in the rehearsals. That was all very well. But as many all those faces were out there, oh, my God. I was like, please.
And then, so Broadway, though, I mean, that's a big step from doing
that was a big step.
Stuff.
So basically what happened, I got a friend of mine in Halifax, Nova Scotia, told me that they were doing auditions for the local rep company, okay?
Yeah.
And I'd had enough of doing what I was doing. I'd made a load of money. I had a lovely house, a lovely apartment, a great life. And I thought, I just want to do this theatre business. This guy said to me they're doing an audition for the local rep company. So I looked into it, found out they wanted you to do something contemporary, something classical, and singing and or dancing, okay? So I got it all set in my mind, and then I got discouraged. I was working with some people in a little theatre, a little sort of amateur theatre, and they said, oh, there's so many English people here, they won't like you. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it, I chickened out. So I wasn't going to go for this audition, right? But I was taking out the boss man of the power company who was our main client. I was taking him out for lunch on a Friday afternoon. And when we'd had the lunch, I walked him to his car, and he'd parked the car right outside the theatre where the auditions were going on. Wow. I said goodbye, lovely lunch, and I ran down the road to where I knew there was a phone box, right? Phoned the theatre, and I explained to her, I said, look, I was going to, she said, can you get here right now? I said, yeah. She said, right, come on, somebody's dropped out. I literally ran down the road again, go in there, gave me a form to fill out, filled it all out. And about 5 minutes later, I walk into this colossal rehearsal room that was like something out of a movie with baskets and costumes and ropes and wires and all the gear and everything else there. And sitting right at the end of it was a guy cross-legged on one of those big peacock chairs that were very, very, very popular in the 70s. Yeah. His legs crossed. He's looking at this form, cigarette. Off to his left, there's a guy leaning across a beautiful big grand piano. He's sitting at it. And on the other side, there's a guy stretched out, great long hair, stretched out on a chaise longue. So I've got the three of them there, chaise longue boy, piano boy, him in the middle. And he says, so, Larry Lamb, tell me, Larry, what exactly does an electrical power line construction manager do? So I just started talking. And we talked. And all the time there's this thing going on. Like, what's going on? Something's going to happen. So in the end, he kind of looked at them like that. They were all laughing. And he said, so what are you going to do for us? And I said, well, you wanted something, classical. So I've just done the Greek play, Medea. Do you know it? I mean, talk about crack 'em up. They all went like, oh, come on. We've really got a live one here, right? Because there is the sense that you might be trying to wind them up, and then they realise instantaneously that you're not trying to wind them up. So, and I said, well, I have this party piece that, I've always done. My father did it, and it's the story of Albert and the Lion that I can do, so that's in a sort of a provincial accent. And I can sing for you, or, I can't dance, but I can certainly sing you a song, one of the songs my nan used to sing with me, And so I did all of that, and then at the end we started talking again, and we talked again, and we talked again. And then he looked at them, literally, nobody had moved, and he said, we think you should do this. And I said, right, okay, right, well, and then I walked out and I thought, well, that was it, Anyway, about 3 weeks later, I thought, somebody's going to happen, right? They knew where I was. There was phone numbers and everything. So I phoned the theatre, left a message at the local blokes thing, and said, what's going on? Because I'm quitting, I'm back to America. And I finally, after about another week, I got a message from him, come to the stage door Friday evening. And, so I go to stage door, they get me upstairs, I'm in there, I talk to the guy, and he said, well, look, really, really do think you should do this, but obviously the money you've been earning is nothing like we can pay you, right? So, but like there's a couple, we're doing Hamlet, and there's a couple of nice parts in it that I can put together, and so you can have something to do, nice speaking parts in it. And so I said, okay, that's great, that's what I want. What happened to the other fella, the one in the middle, the guy that was in the middle that was running things? He said, haven't you heard from him? I said, no, I don't even know who he was. He said, that's Robin Phillips. He's come over from England to run the Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, Ontario. So he's been sitting in on all the auditions. Didn't they get in touch with you? I said, no. He said, okay, take this number and phone there. Phone there and speak to John Hayes, who's the manager of the theatre. So I phone the manager of the theatre, leave a message. And I get back from taking this other bloke who's come up from headquarters to take over the job from me. And I've told him I'm going back to school, university. And so they said, okay, don't worry, your job's still here, do what you want. And so I pick up the phone and there's a message there for me to call John Hayes, right? So I phoned John Hayes. He says, oh, Larry, lovely of you to left a message, but Robin has asked me to tell you we'd love you to come to the festival as a journeyman actor for the 75 season. So that was it. I was on my way. I was there. So
and that was the beginning.
That was it. So I go there. And my second season there, which is the year that Maggie Smith was there, and Jeremy Brett was there, and Hugh Cronin was there, and Jessica Tandy was there, and Keith Baxter was there. So it was it was extraordinary. And at the end of the season, Jeremy Brett, my lady friend then, and him and I, we'd all become really good friends. And he said to me, "Look, darling," he said, "I've had my agent in New York, Janet Roberts. She wants to know if I could play a Northern Ireland docker." He said, "I've known one or two, but I couldn't play one. But I do." I said, "I know somebody that could." So it went back and forth between New York and Stratford, and on a Friday night, I finished up in New York at the Music Box Theatre, doing an audition for Mike Nichols and for Trevor Griffiths.
Nichols.
Yeah, for Mike Nichols, who was directing. Comedians was the play, and I got the part.
And Mike Nichols directed you. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why have you kept this under your hat all these years?
There you go, mate.
So what was that? Mike Nichols, for those of you who don't know, I mean, Google
Colossal.
him. Colossal.
Yeah. In the world of comedy.
Absolute titan.
I know.
Oh, look, I don't know how much time we've got because I'm 59.
But, yeah, exactly. But, another 59 years, I could probably get the story told.
All right, but come on. Mike Nichols. And we haven't talked about EastEnders, but never mind that. Yeah. Mike Nichols.
So the only time we could arrange for me to do an audition for them was on a Friday night. So we finished the show on the Friday afternoon, got driven to the airport, got on a plane, flew to New York in a taxi, pulled up outside the stage door of the Music Box Theatre, which is right on 44th Street. And it's really weird because the stage door is right next to the main entrance to the theatre. Really weird. So I knock on the door. I ring the bell, right? And all of a sudden the door opens. There's a little guy there. "Mr. Lamb?" I said, "Yeah, come with me." So this guy, he leads me through the theatre, which is out into the auditorium, which is completely empty. There are no curtains. All there is a stage and seats. That's it. And then anything you want, you hire that in them yourself. So he said, Mr. Cohen will be there. Alex Cohen, who was the big producer. He's the guy that used to produce the Tony Awards every year. So he's a big shot. So he said, "You wait there, Mr. Cohen will be here, and Mr. Nichols will be here." Anyway, all of a sudden I hear another ring, and then in comes this phalanx of people. There's Alex Cohen, beautiful fedora, this great sort of cashmere overcoat draped over his shoulders. "Mr. Lamb, Alex Cohen. Would you show me your green card?" I think, okay, yeah. So I get the green card out and I give it to him, and I'm just waiting for him to buy it. It was like checking it out, holding it up, and everything. "Thank you." And Mr. Nichols and Mr. Griffiths will be here shortly. And so he and all his acolytes all go and spread themselves out in the theatre. And then all of a sudden there's another ring, and then in comes Mike Nichols and Trevor Griffiths. And because Trevor Griffiths has got long hair like this, Mike Nichols very blonde and very... So I said, "Well, you must be Mike Nichols and you must be Trevor Griffiths." Well, that was kind of like, "Oh, yeah, really?" So he said, so why are we here on a Friday evening auditioning you? And I explained the situation. So he said, "Okay." And the audition was in the play. This is comedians. In the second act, all the guys that are learning to be comedians, they go to a little club to do their acts. So the audition was for the person like up for the part of George McBrain, the Northern Irish docker, was to do the comedy act, your stand-up act. So I just looked. I said to one of the ladies, "Do you have a little hairbrush?" She gave me a hairbrush, so I had a microphone. And I stood there and I had the script. And they'd said to me, when I was talking to them on the phone beforehand, they said, "Look, we've had people coming all from all over America here, but they cannot find anybody that can do a convincing Northern Irish accent." And Trevor Griffiths, the playwright, insists that the character has to work with a Northern Irish accent. So I've got Northern Irish family. It's an accent I've heard since I was a little boy. So I had those funny old vowel sounds in there, so I know I could do it. So I said to him, "Look, would you mind if I just played this as me And then I did the accent for him. So as far as he was concerned, yeah, that's fine. You can do the accent. I do the thing. And they'd said, just make them laugh. If you can make them laugh, right? So I start doing it, and all of a sudden, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. The little laughs coming out from all over the audience, you know, with these people spotting around. So anyway, I put the thing down, I give it back to the lady, and Alex Cohen walks forward to the edge and is looking up, Mr. Lamb, we've made a reservation for you in the Algonquin Hotel. You take a left out of here, a right down the corner, and yes, they'd go and check in. And so, you know, I don't know, the Algonquin, right? You know, so I walk around, I get into the Algonquin, I check in, and I go up to them. The boy brings my bags and everything up. He was just checking me into the room. And just as he's going, the phone rings. I pick the phone up. Mr. Lamb, Alex Cohen here. Subject to negotiations with your agent, I'd like to offer you the part of George McBride. Rehearsals start in October the 14th. Thank you very much and good night. Click. That's it. So I phoned this agent, Jeremy Brett's agent, who'd organised it, and I said, they've just said, like, they've offered me the part. I said, like, is this really Broadway? She said, is this Broadway? She said, Alex Cohen producing, Mike Nichols directing, a huge hit of a play by Trevor Griffiths, right? And you're in the Music Box Theatre, right? She said, this is as big as Broadway gets. Get in a cab and come down here. And that was it.
God, Larry. Who else was in it with you?
Jonathan Pryce played the central character.
Right.
And Milo O'Shea played the old teacher.
Yeah.
Just to drop names, John Lithgow was playing.
Get lost.
John Lithgow. Ted Danson was an understudy.
Go away.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to say, Larry, you and I have spent many hours sitting across from each other in between takes. Why in God's name have you never told me this story?
Because you didn't ask.
What
I did. I wrote an autobiography which you read, and you also wrote you wrote a what's it on there? You know, like said something about.
No, but
No, but look, but what I was going to say is there's loads of my life I didn't even put in there. Well, I don't think I put that in there.
Right, yeah, because I'm not familiar with that.
Because there was so much of my life before I was an actor that was in that book. Yeah. It was probably at least 50% of that autobiography didn't touch on the theatre.
And that's where we are going to have to end part one of our conversation with Larry. And we've not even touched the bloody surface, scratched the surface. All right, the next time, if you are kind enough to visit us again, we will go on to all the other stuff. You must look back at it, though, just to wrap up. It's very individual career, isn't it? It's very, I'll bet you don't read of anyone who's had your route.
No. You couldn't do it nowadays. You couldn't, you can't just go off footloose and fancy free and make a life for yourself. Somebody wants to know if you've got a credit rating. Somebody wants to know if you've got this, have you got a card, have you got that, blah, 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 blah.
You know what it sounds like to me, the way you've told it is, and it doesn't surprise me, is that you encountered people on this journey through life. They all rather liked you. And they wanted... That's what's coming, because you're saying to them, they said, well, you call this person and he's that, and you do it. It seems that they liked you.
I don't know. That's possible. I think it's more likely that I liked meeting people that were opening my life up. People that made a mark.
Yeah.
When a lot of the people that I'd met before that made no mark.
All right.
Yeah.
Listen, we have to stop because
Rory Bremner. He
is,
won't appreciate getting held up.
No, and who knows which voice he'll get angry in.
There you go. He'll probably give you a choice of voice.
Larry, thank you so much.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It's been lovely. It's been really lovely. They're really lovely.